We're now approaching Parshas Balak, and we see that the depth of the conspiracy of those that seek to fight against God Almighty, that they went ahead and they tried, when they failed to physically defeat the Jewish people, they tried to use sorcery and curses to defeat the Jewish people. But God Almighty intervened and turned around the curses into blessings. But when the curses didn't work, and that the curses were turned to great blessings for the Jewish people, including blessings that are impacting us today in terms of the prophecy of the coming of the Mashiach, the righteous Redeemer, and the coming of the redemption, we see that Bilam and Balak, they turned to try to seduce the Jewish people. But the key was through deception. What Balak did is, in order to entice the Jewish people into idolatry, which was really impossible for him to do, what he did is he set up a marketplace, a phony marketplace that looked like it was a place to come and do business and buy things. And that enticed the Jewish men to go there. And then, of course, they struck up conversations with the sales ladies. And the sales ladies then proceeded to entice the Jewish men into immoral relationships, which then, as part of the immoral relationships, was requiring the Jewish men to bow down to idols. And we could see how much foresight the people who want to try to take the Jewish people off course have into planning out multi-stage deceptions, multi-stage conspiracies in order to lead the Jewish people astray, and by extension, the entire world astray. So we have to recognize, we have to be careful what marketplaces we go into. A marketplace could look totally legitimate. It could be a marketplace of ideas. It could even look like it's having Torah conversations. It could have all kinds of seemingly worthwhile activities. But then we have to realize what may be going on behind the scenes. What is the intention? Where is this ending up? Where are people ending up? And you start to look at the results, start to look at the effect on your own warmth and connection to God Almighty, your own enthusiasm for learning God's divine truth, your own enthusiasm for doing kindness and loving kindness for other people, your own enthusiasm for bringing children into the world. This is what you could see by what happens to the people who go to the marketplaces that have been set up specifically to entice the Jewish people to end up, God forbid, serving the cult of scarcity and serving things that are not in accordance with Torah. So our job is to stay away from those marketplaces, to stay away from the rush of energy that comes from and the chemicals in our body that comes from the enticing activities that draw us after these other things, and to be aware that the end result is to try to get us to bow down to idolatry. And it requires one person, really all of us, but the example is Pinchas, who stood up against this and stood up, even though the leadership of the Jewish people was silent at that time, astonishingly silent. And these were his teachers who had taught him the right thing to do, to execute judgment against these people who were disgracing the righteousness of the Jewish people and disgracing what the right thing was right in front of the entire public. They were the teachers that taught him, and yet they fell silent, astonishingly so. So Pinchas took action. He took action because he knew it was the right thing to do, even though it was unpopular, even though it was in the front of his teachers and much senior people who seemingly should have known the right thing to do and seemingly should have taken action. But he went ahead and did it. And the lesson for us is that each person has to know that, especially the young generation, when we look and see the leadership in silence, it's not for us to explain exactly why they're quiet, why they're not saying things. There's no significance when they're quiet. The significance is purely to give the opportunity for the younger generation to step to the forefront, like Pinchas did, pick up the spear and be filled with the desire to bring the giver of life into full revelation in the world, that every single human being is going to know and recognize God Almighty, filled with that righteous energy, and to bring that message to every single person and to pierce through all the deceptions, all the conspiracies, all the ways of tricking people, all the ways of getting people off track into all kinds of different marketplaces with all kinds of seductive logic and seductive ideas and fear mongering and so forth, and pierce through all that with the light of Torah and the light of mitzvahs, of doing the next right action that God Almighty is teaching us. And as we learn now in the gate of oneness, God is always speaking to us. We're always hearing the whisper of God. The question is, are we listening to it? Are we listening to it and taking the time to make sure that we are able to understand it correctly? So God will always direct us, and God will direct every single person, every single place, at every single time. And God willing, they will be able, that God Almighty should bless each one of us with the strength, the clarity to know the difference between right and wrong. That was the first thing. Pinchas had to know the difference between right and wrong. And then he had to be willing to identify the right as right and the wrong as wrong, even when everyone else was completely silent. And then he had to be willing to go ahead and act upon that distinction between right and wrong, even though everyone else was either some were plotting the wrong actions and some were completely silent. He went ahead and did it. Because of that, God Almighty blessed him with the covenant of peace to become a kohen, become a priest among the Jewish people, because of his righteous service for God Almighty on behalf of the Jewish people and the entire world, to set it clear once and for all what's right and bring that to the forefront of every human being's awareness. And God Almighty should bless us that each one of us in every action we're taking should have that effect, that we are like the Pinchas who rises up from amongst the congregation and then through that becomes the leader of the congregation. But not that the congregation should just ride on the coattails of Pinchas, but rather each person in the congregation should become like Pinchas. Each person should know the difference between right and wrong, take the action no matter what everyone else is saying, and then we will all discover, we're going to all end up in the wonderful same place of realizing that we're all here dedicated to the service of God Almighty, dancing the ultimate redemption, dancing together in the service of one God Almighty, which is the God Almighty for every single human being that is created in God Almighty's image, with the rebuilding of the Holy Temple in the holy city of Jerusalem, in the Holy Land, should happen right now. Everyone should have a good Shabbos.